Brendan, I can see the gang is all here, so I won't take up too much time. But I can answer the question, why the NBA? As somebody who used to cover the NBA specifically, it's not an accident. David Stern years ago created something called the Technology Summit during All-Star Weekend, and it was one of the highlights. And he wanted to bring players into the fold. So it's not an accident that the NBA is among the most tech-forward leagues. And before I throw to you, I would like to thank the Rodman Law Group for sponsoring today's events. We're going to hear from Dave Rodman in a little bit. But first, you have your panel chock full there. You got your work cut out for you, Brendan. Let's see what these guys have to share. Take it away, bud.
Hey, thanks, Scott. So we've got a great roundtable discussion here today. Collectibles are the biggest opportunity in sports, which excites me because it means that the 30 years of holding on to my Nobody Beats the Wiz Yankees Hall of Fame card series might pay off for my Steve Sachs Tetley T card. But that's probably not what we're really talking about. I mean, Jeff, let me start with you. Being a top, you got 1 foot in the old world, 1 foot in the new world. How in sports, there are a lot of big opportunities, right? There's globalization, there's sports betting, there's fantasy sports, there's streaming. Are collectibles really the biggest opportunity in sports, you think?
Hard to say. I think, over the last year, they've been as hot as any opportunity that you can find in sports. And I've been at Topps for 10 years, and I would say collectibles have been as hot as they were since the 80s and 90s, when they really were kind of the social currency for all kids and even adolescents. So, fantasy is still hot. You guys just got done with a discussion on NFTs. That's certainly extremely an exciting space for a lot of people. But I think collectibles really over the past few years, and especially with the pandemic last year, are really on the rise right now.
Yeah, great. I mean, we know about NFTs. We just heard about them, but is that all the future of collectibles are? I mean, what else is collectible, or what can be collectible? I don't know if Greg, you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was going to comment on Jeremy's hair first. I haven't seen him for a while, and it's like he's like Fletch. So no, look, I'm kind of building on what Jeff said.
Kevin, just collecting NFTs.
Building on what Jeff said, look, I think it all comes down to scarcity is always cool, and we can talk about all these things, but the reality is the human. We've always traded on scarcity, whether it's gold or real estate, whether it's now or the Roman Empire. It's no different. There's just a lot less friction now around the ability to trade scarce assets. And I think what you're seeing in collectibles now just makes everything a collectible. Talking about the categories you can play in, whether it's, I have an experience around event tickets and being part of eBay and StubHub, and sneakers with GOAT and streetwear. And now we've kind of rekindled. I remember making the investment in GOAT 6 or 7 years ago, which is the leading sneaker marketplace. And it was the idea that this is this is the baseball card of the new generation. Turns out now that that's come all the way back. And in fact, sneakers may be yesterday and it's trading cards that are tomorrow, and who knows what the day after. So look, at the end of the day, everything can be a collectible. Those things that you seek out to be a collectible today probably aren't the right collectibles. What makes them collectible is no one thought they were collectibles at the time. Who would think of that? You wouldn't open a video game when you bought it, or you wouldn't open a vinyl album when you actually purchased it. Like, that's what makes them unique at the end of the day. So I think we're just in the beginning of really understanding what is collectible, whether it's physical or digital in nature.
Yeah. Hey, Jeremy, what do you think? Thoughts on that? What is collectible?
Everything is collectible these days. No, it's been fascinating to see kind of all the new things people are getting into, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of what holds value. I think that's what everyone's trying to guess right now, is what are the things you want to be collecting today? Is it the old school stuff on cardboard, the new school moments? People got a lot of different thoughts, lots of opinions. I think there's going to be a lot more coming. So it's going to be really interesting to see what people continue to collect, and as the world kind of moves forward, what plays into the future world.
Oh, yeah. Lloyd, what do you make of it? I mean, are collectibles the biggest opportunity in sports? I know everyone here really concentrates on something else. We got venture capitalists, we have fantasy sports, we have. Where do you see things going, Lloyd?
Yeah, I think collectibles certainly huge opportunity, and it's hard to even know where the definition of collectibles ends. So I don't even know if it's clear that you can currently finitely bound what the opportunity is. To me, in terms of the future of media and entertainment, though, I think the biggest impact of all of this, in particular by way of NFTs, is that people are going to get used to this idea of having digital representations of ownership and authenticity. And that transcends sports and essentially makes anything you can imagine tradable and collectible. Because if I have a digital, mathematically engineered way to verify that this token represents owner of an NBA Top Shot moment, I can also have a way to verify that this token represents ownership to my house or my car or some amount of dollars or my season tickets to my favorite team. And now suddenly, when these things can be, again, mathematically and algorithmically verified in an independent way using software, now you and I can place a bet on tonight's game. And instead of betting money against each other, we can bet something that our ownership in is represented by an NFT. And to the extent that someone goes out there and builds a company that offers people house deeds on NFTs, we could literally bet our house against each other on the outcome of an event. Or I could bet my season tickets against your season tickets, or a ticket to a particular game against a particular game. And I think that a lot of people have to remember that often the criticisms or skepticisms that are exhibited around the growth of Collectibles 2.0 would equally be applied to Collectibles 1.0. If you don't think that a baseball card should ever be worth more than the paper it's printed on, well, then sure, you're not going to think an NBA Top Shot moment would either. But clearly, there's a massive market for people who love collectibles, experiences. I think in that previous session, Katie mentioned sports fans love new ways to express and demonstrate their affinity for their teams. The fact that they're a better and more intense fan than their friends are. There's almost a competition around it sometimes. And I think this is going to give rise not only to a multi-billion-dollar opportunity in collectibles here, but now almost every moment can be gamified. Everything can be bettable or predictable. And you start getting much more interactive and immersive experiences that I think better speak to the social dynamics that people look to for products and services like this.
That's an interesting point. It brings a question to mind, though, which I think I know your answer to, but I'll ask everyone else to chime in, is if something's easily tradable, is it a collectible? Isn't part of being collectible a little bit of the difficulty in finding it and the sort of joy of coming across something? Or, does the NFT's ability to be, instantly sold and traded, does that make it not a collectible?
Look, I think there's the friction rarely does friction create value. Friction destroys value. At the end of the day, there are a tremendous amount of entities that profit from friction, whether it's Lloyd's example of deed and titles and real estate, whether it's eBay, whether it's even, FedEx and UPS and USPS, they're all providing, even sales tax is friction. And so I don't fully agree with Lloyd that the world moves to the blockchain, because I think there are just too many incumbents in ticketing and real estate and healthcare and finance that aren't giving up their proprietary control of that, but new assets and new things that are created. But at the end of the day, I think what's the benefit of all of what's happening is the friction has been removed. Just think about the idea that between the five of us on this panel, we could Venmo and PayPal and Square Cash each other money in real time. I can sell a piece of a Bitcoin on my Coinbase account and have that money in my PayPal account in 3 seconds, right? I can literally move money between brokerage accounts. I can do anything. And so the friction is being removed, and that's what's unlocking all of that. Just like, if we go back to eBay 20 years ago when I worked there, when we integrated PayPal into eBay, we used to send money orders, right, between transactions. And that's just, we can't even fathom that today. So I just think the reducing of the friction just makes the market multiply. It doesn't create the acquiring the assets themselves. Maybe if it's commoditized, it has no value, but the transaction part itself, the removal of the friction, is really what's enabled us to be where we are today.
Yeah, fascinating. I mean, what to us at Sportico, or at least to me, it seems like the explosion of NFTs just recently, and last year of sort of this sort of unexpected revival of collectibles in general, of the sort of the fractionalization of trading cards and things of that sort, just seems to have come out of the blue. I mean, is this coming out of the blue, or has this been building for a while, or what are some of the dynamics that have sparked this? Do you think, Jeremy? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, the blockchain and the interest in that, I think, has been a big catalyst. I mean, it's something I tried. Greg's familiar with this. Back in 2009, when I graduated college, I tried to create a sports stock market, and back then we were trading virtual assets. I didn't know what the blockchain was. I think it was probably just being born, and God, I wish I did. But it's all like, to me, the behaviors on NBA Top Shot so closely mimic the behaviors of sports card collecting, and it's just an evolution with less friction. And as we see kind of over and over again, as the digital replaces the old physical and removes friction, like you look at Uber and taxi cabs as a perfect example, the digital can become bigger. And I think we're seeing that today with Top Shot already being bigger than the sports card market. I know, Jack, awesome to have you here now. He's been on Zed Racing for a while, and he and I have been chatting about it. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying, I think that could be bigger than all of physical horse racing in the future, right? And because it removes so much of the challenges, and I own horses now. It's really hard for me to own real world horses, but I own blockchain horses, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Jack, let's loop you in here. How big of an opportunity do you see, or what opportunities do you see in collectibles from your perspective?
Well, I think it's kind of separate, which is what we're discussing, which is blockchain and just what that's going to do and change technology and collectibles. So as it comes to collectibles, I can see why a physical sports card that's gone through history is so much more valuable than maybe a Top Shot moment. But like Jeremy was just talking about, the value in an NFT and the tech and the utility just kills all inefficiencies. You don't have PSA grading backups. You don't have a bunch of these. You don't have to go buy a physical horse, train a jockey, build a stable and do all that type of stuff. You can now just own it, at your fingertips. So as far as collectibles, I think there's a million different things. If it's truly about collecting, then that's where, the opportunity can be wherever, because people love all different types of things. But when it comes to technology and blockchain and NFTs, which is actually what I think this conversation is about, then the tech of the blockchain NFT it blows anything we have today away.
Yeah, interesting point. And that does raise a question, right? Are collectibles now, do you guys see them just as an entry into gateway into getting consumers into another business, or fans to more to fantasy sports or into betting or whatever else, or is it a thing of its own? I know, Jeff. I think
a really interesting question. Sorry to hop in. Are people collecting or are they investing? And what is a split of that? Because when I'm looking at most of this, I'm investing. I'm not holding something to plan to hold it for the rest of my life to show it to my grandkids. And my belief is that people talk a lot about collecting, but most people are doing it as an investment. And back to the question earlier, then what can it be? It can be anything if you think it's a good investment.
I completely agree, because we get into a situation where like people are like, oh, I love the hobby, I love collecting, and there's no denying that. But I promise you would feel very different about your sports card if it was worthless. And I don't think people will be as excited as you see right now. They're not as excited about Top Shot if they're worth less money. So it's naive to act like people are just collecting for the heck of it, and they really enjoy that facet. But what makes Top Shot or NFTs more interesting to me is you can collect physical sports cards, but all you have is a tangible item that you can't do anything with. At least now with utility, you have entertainment value. So let's say Jeremy goes into Zed, buys a horse. He can now race it. He can enjoy that. He can watch the race, eventually be able to gamble on it. And like, people pay to go to the movies. That's not an investment. That's not collecting. It's just an entertainment value. And NFTs and utility actually can change that. So while Jeremy may be investing, he also could buy a Zion moment because it could lead to him getting to meet Zion after the game. And that's a value exchange. Whereas these physical cards, just the potential with them is you hold them and they're a store of value.
Hey, Jeff, from at Topps, what do you make of them? Is this, is the future all digital or traditional collectibles, be it cards or game worn gear, those sorts of things? Are those ending up in the trash bin? Do you think?
Well, I think there's a few things. Investment I just want to touch on quickly. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can invest in collectibles. There's the short term, which is people that are looking to flip things. People buy, whether it's a trading card, a box of cards, a case of cards, they're looking for that immediate gratification. And then there's people who are more long-term investors, right? And you can define that horizon in a lot of different ways. And what we've seen at Topps is we've seen a resurgence of people coming back into the hobby of all different ages, right? So I'm probably a little bit older than some of you guys, and I have kids. So, there's a nostalgia and a desire to maybe collect with your kids, pass it on to the next generation. And then there's some of the younger people. I think Greg talked about GOAT and sneakers. We're seeing a lot of those, consumers coming into trading cards because maybe there's a little bit more, it's a little bit more liquid than sneakers to a certain extent. But I also think that there's a lot of other things that you can collect in the trading card world. So, and then your question on digital versus physical, I think the world in general is moving very digital. But I do think there's always going to be a place for physical, tangible assets that people want to touch and hold. I think those two things can coexist together. NFTs is certainly a huge conversation. And I will say at Topps, it's something that we're happy about. It just brings more attention to the space of collectibles in a new way to collect. And we think there's a lot of different options for people to choose as far as what and how they want to collect.
Yeah, how do you keep this going, right? It seems so popular right now. How do you keep this from being a fad or a bubble? And maybe you don't even agree it's a fad or a bubble. But how do you sustain the momentum that the sector has right now, do you think? Lloyd,
I'll tell you, Brendan, I'll tell you one thing that I think will be sort of a next step, and both Jeremy and Jack, and I think almost everyone has at some point referred to the fact that some of these tokenized experiences or NFTs come with perhaps some additional utility. For example, an ability to have a meet and greet with a player or play a Madden game against a player or something like that. Something that we're about to see here in the US that has already been popularized with European soccer football teams is this idea of fan tokens. Whereas a fan of a particular game, you purchase a token that allows you to vote on different team matters. It might be something like what color warm-up jerseys they wear, or it might even be, what play they run on third down, depending on the type of team that is issuing it. And you could imagine that there's a limited number of these fan tokens that get issued, and they get bid up. And because they exist as NFTs, you can always authenticate and know you're dealing with a real or not real fan token. Certainly, you would expect there to be a secondary market, and then perhaps some of the stuff Jack and Jeremy mentioned get layered in. Not only do you have the ability to vote on certain team matters, but you can, almost in a gamified fashion, use your fan tokens to get more loyalty, VIP type experiences. Even right now, there's those Green Bay Packers shareholders that have these sort of vanity stock certificates that don't really do much, but certainly are, if you go to Green Bay, one of the most valuable pieces of paper you can find in anyone's home in the entire city. And you could certainly see an equivalent and actually far superior version of that, where people get that same feeling of sort of ownership and affinity, but actually use this technology to enjoy being a sports fan more. And I think that's the key. How does this become a sticky technology platform, whatever word you want to use? If it actually enables people to enjoy their sports fandom more and enables teams and brands to better and more efficiently monetize those fans along the way, that feels like a much more permanent, not at all temporary type of trend.
Yeah, and Brendan, I think there's just kind of this BS thing that the only thing that has value is stocks, bonds, and currency. And that's a load of crap. That's just what Wall Street wants us to think, because that's how our parents grew up. And I'm old, I'm the oldest guy on this call. And there's more to life than stocks, bonds, and dollars, right? And the reality is there are trillions of dollars of assets, again, using them as dollars as the value equalizer, that aren't stocks, bonds, or pieces of currency. And what's the difference between gold and an Erling Haaland rookie card? They're both worthless, right? What's the difference between, a Mickey Mantle and, a Tesla at $900 a share. Like, there's a way that company's not worth that much, but it is worth what someone will pay. I know, and now it's $650, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? And I just think like there's this stereotype of if it isn't a share of Berkshire Hathaway, therefore it's worthless. And I think what you're seeing is, eBay's core business on the collectibles is literally doing billions upon billions of dollars. If it were spun out as its own company, the value of eBay's collectibles business would be greater than the total value of eBay today. It's literally one of the fastest growing marketplaces. It's physical marketplace. I know, well, Top Shot's not growing anymore because my portfolio is now only worth half of what it was 3 weeks ago. But I think, the idea that there is TAM issues here, I think we're on the early innings of all this. And we're only talking really about a US centric view. When it comes to collectibles, what's happening in Europe, other than maybe So Rare and some soccer cards, like it's pretty nascent. And I think, I'm very bullish on adding a zero to whatever the total addressable market is today. I would love to see Jeff's P&L right now. I don't think they've had a better year than they're having right now. And I think we're kind of just look at the NBA Prism, which is a competitor to Jeff's product released today. They're selling a box of cards for $2,000. I don't know what that box was last year, but it wasn't $2,000. And so the demand is just off the charts right now. And I think we're still early, regardless if it's physical or digital in nature.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I know we're going into our time here, but so I mean, what's next? Is there another NFT type thing just over the horizon next week, or what are you excited about right now? Or is it just continuing to kind of run with these early innings? Jeremy,
it's just going to get weirder and weirder. You look every couple of months, something new is going to come.
I was going to say, I think, not to get too sci-fi or futuristic, but I think 5-10 years from now, one of the most widespread uses of NFTs is going to be as the media and entertainment landscape moves towards something resembling a metaverse, where there's a sort of digital virtual reality that people congregate in. There's also going to be a lot of artificial intelligence entities that exist in this metaverse. And in order to verify that I am talking to the real Brendan at Sportico, or that this avatar in virtual cyberspace is actually Brendan, that will likely require some sort of cryptographic verification. And there are a lot of companies working on NFT implemented AI avatars for the digital cyberspace metaverse. And to the extent that that does become the way, entertainment proceeds, I think that'll be, again, Jeremy said it's just going to get weirder and weirder. I feel like that might be an understatement and could not better categorize how I feel about some of these applications you're going to start hearing about. Companies are going to be getting funded. And it's a crazy but exciting time. Greg mentioned at the very beginning, it's hard to say what's going to happen to old assets that are wrapped up in companies and technologies that have proprietary databases and patents and all that. But certainly new assets and new creations will really lend themselves toward this NFT tokenization economy.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Jack, you any thoughts? What's next?
Yeah, I would just say go watch the movie Ready Player One so you can expand your mind on the potential. And who knows how long the metaverse is going to be. I mean, Decentraland already exists, Sandbox. People are paying millions of dollars for virtual real estate, which when I first heard that, I was like, I was in Top Shot. I couldn't get that. Now I get it because I think it's where we're headed. So go, like, it's a good movie, but it really just opens your mind to what we're probably headed towards. Which
it's a better book, actually, Jack. But
yeah, I've heard that. But Greg, I need to visualize.
You're a kid, I know.
Exactly.
Well, I am not a kid, and I want to thank Greg for talking about money orders. So I know there's a contemporary on the call. Thank you. I used to utilize those, Greg, so I appreciate that. Jack, you mentioned PSA backups. You did see that today or last night they said that they will not be doing any authentication for a while. So very timely. Lloyd talked about Packers stock. Just for fun, when my son was born almost 12 years ago, I signed him up for season tickets. I think I'm like number 69,000 on the wait list. So it shows the popularity of the stock you were talking about. And Lloyd, you're killing me because cryptographic verification, like I got enough with my two-factor verification from my Facebook and Twitter. So I may be calling you for help whenever that comes to light. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We are going to move on to our next panel.